My mother-in-law forbade me from going on the trip that I was paying for because it's only for family. But my card felt offended and left her stranded in the middle of the trip without a cent. I am 44 years old. I have been married to my wife, Meg, who is 39 for 15 years. We have 2 children, 13 and 10 years old. We are a stable couple without major conflicts within the relationship, but there are external ones. If there is something that has been a constant problem in our relationship, it's my mother-in-law, Mara, who is 59 years old. She is a real piece of work, and I don't say that lightly. This is not new. It has practically started from the day I met her. Mara has been on a silent crusade, and not so silent, to make it clear to me that I can be married to her daughter, but I am not part of the family and never will be. She is one of those extremely critical people, hidden behind a polished facade and false courtesy. Every interaction with her feels like walking on thin glass over a pit of acid with genetically modified sharks, so they can devour you and not be melted by the liquid. One wrong step, and you fall to a painful death, but a passive-aggressive death, of course. This is because she compares me to my father-in-law, who is obviously more successful than me. My father-in-law worked in the government. Myra's sister also works in the government. So in her head, a respectable job is being a lawyer, doctor, or military personnel. Anything else doesn't have enough dignity. Additionally, I don't come from a family of business owners, nor do I have family inheritances, so I'm not rich either. Basically, I'm a loser in her eyes because I don't have $10,000 lying around the house, which is what is necessary for her daughter to be well taken care of and pampered. This is not the reality, the one that I am a loser, although it's true that I don't have $10,000 lying around. I have my own house, which we bought with my wife, a decent car, and I lead a responsible life. To any other mother-in-law, it would seem sufficient, but not to mine. Despite that, Mara made it clear that I am barely average, and she let her opinion seep into everything. I think the only reason my marriage has survived until now is because they lived in another state. And when we saw each other on special occasions, Meg would beg me to swallow my pride and keep the peace. So somehow, I have been smiling through the tests of faith that my mother-in-law throws at me, while thinking to myself how much longer my mother-in-law has to live. I like to make mental estimates, but I swear one day I will create the most accurate mathematical model possible. Oh, and it's only Mara who has this idea. My father-in-law and my sister-in-law are very kind people and distant from the drama. They have always come to my defense and tried to calm the situation. But Mara is a controlling and unpredictable woman. If something is not done her way, she makes it her mission for everyone to find out and move their feet to fix it. To keep the peace, my poor and unfortunate father-in-law has tolerated that his whole life. Some people have dark circles due to age, stress, or diet. My father-in-law looks like he hasn't slept in 3 decades, but my theory is that it must be from sharing a bed with my mother-in-law or the sarcophagus if she needs something special to sleep in. This year, my father-in-law retired and they moved back to our city. They had already built a retirement house here. His department gave him a big farewell. I even attended, and he seemed to be a very respected man in his job. After the party, Mara came up with the idea of taking a family trip to Italy to celebrate her husband's retirement. Our children had a summer camp scheduled during that time. We thought it would be a good opportunity for a vacation. We hadn't taken a proper vacation in a long time. It seemed like a good idea to me, and I was more than happy to take it on as a gift for the family. I told Meg that I would cover the flights and hotels as a gesture of goodwill. I received a quarterly bonus that includes travel and hotel allowances, and it had accumulated for a while, so I thought, why not use it now? Everyone seemed excited. Well, everyone except Mara. She didn't say anything directly, but she had that expression of displeasure. I asked her if she was okay, and she said yes. Okay, we went back home. Meg and I started planning the itinerary. I made the reservations and sent the details to the family group. Everyone was excited about the hotels and activities I had reserved, except for Mara. Anyone who knows her knows this. If she is quiet, it means a storm is coming. Then 2 days before the trip, she showed up at our house unannounced. Very strange, because she never comes alone without my father-in-law, and they always call first. At least it's like those cats that have a bell put on them so they don't jump on your back and scare you to death. I let her in and informed Meg. I went to the bedroom because, I prefer to keep my distance. Then Mara called me and said that she actually came to talk to me, and Meg quickly left us alone. I was scared, very scared, because it's like being locked in the lion's cage without instructions. With my history with Mara, it goes without saying that I didn't feel comfortable at all. She started by saying that she was worried I would feel out of place on the trip. I asked her what she meant by that. She said, hesitating, that maybe it would be better if this trip were only for the family. I asked if I wasn't part of the family. I am your daughter's husband. Are you saying that your son-in-law is not family? She defended herself by saying that she meant the nuclear family, that is her, my father-in-law, and their daughters. I called Meg and asked her if she knew. She admitted, somewhat embarrassed, that yes, but that she didn't want to get involved. Mara scolded Meg a bit for being so passive and said, I've been telling her to tell you, but she doesn't dare. What's the problem if we want to have a private vacation? We can't spend time with our daughters. I swallowed my anger and said, Of course, have a nice trip. I was already very angry and didn't want to say something inappropriate because of her age. I didn't want her to die right there of a heart attack and have to deal with the paperwork later, so I retreated to my room. I heard that Mara left shortly after. Meg came to calm me down. She tried to soften the blow, said that Mara only wanted time to share with her daughters and her husband. She told me, Dad is already retired and aging. Maybe Mom wants to have a vacation with us to remember the old times when we were girls. Perhaps you could let this trip go for everyone's good. I asked her if she really wanted me not to go or if she was saying it because of her mother. She said, hesitating, that maybe it was easier to keep the peace. I had no interest in going on a trip nor paying for it where I clearly wasn't wanted, but hearing it from my wife made it even worse. I said it was fine, that if they didn't want me there, I would stay. She downplayed it and then tried to cheer me up by cooking my favorite dishes, hugging me in bed, being sweet and romantic, but I didn't soften. I canceled my ticket and also the suite with a view of the tower that I had reserved for us in Paris, the floating houses in Venice, and the other accommodations. If I wasn't going to be there, then she wasn't either. On the day of the trip, she left with her family, giving out farewell kisses and hugs, as if she were consoling a crying child with a bunch of sweets. 2 days later, while they were drinking wine in Tuscany or whatever it's called, I canceled all the remaining reservations for the trip, which amounted to about 10 more days, hotels, tour guides, even their return tickets. Not only that, I blocked the card that Meg was carrying with her, which was an extension of mine. Yes, it had some limit on that card, which I thought she would use for food and activities, and very conveniently Meg took it. I didn't stop her when she took it out of the drawer and put it in her purse right in front of me. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to swallow thousands of euros in expenses while they treated me like a stranger. If I wasn't family enough to go, then my card wasn't family enough to pay. It didn't take long for chaos to break out. At 4 a.m, my phone exploded, missed calls from Meg, messages from her sister, even one from Mara herself. I'm sure you did it out of revenge. And she was absolutely damn right. On the third day, when they moved to Florence and went to check in at the hotel, they discovered that the reservation had been canceled. Desperately, they tried to book right there, but the hotel was full. Maybe they looked for another one with available rooms, and when my dear wife tried to pay with the card, it was declined. I immediately received the notification. The others probably put up money to make a reservation. Nothing was as they had imagined. They had to pay for their fancy dinners, which were initially going to be covered with my card. The free spa sessions, tour guides, and other activities no longer existed. A guided tour was stopped halfway through the introduction because the payment didn't go through. Meg was panicking. They had to ask a distant friend who lived in Florence for help to pay for the hotel, and Mara ended up calling her brother and nephew to send them emergency money. The trip went from eating, praying, loving to without a dollar, begging, borrowing in less than 48 hours. Finally, Meg managed to contact me by phone and yelled at me that I had humiliated her. I responded calmly, You made it clear that I wasn't family, so my card isn't either. Enjoy your family bonding experience. And I hung up. 1 day later, her father called me. I assumed he would be angry with me, but that's not what I got, and it left me disoriented. He apologized to me. He said he had no idea about the plan to exclude me. Apparently, Mara and Meg handled everything behind his back, and he only found out at the last minute when he didn't see me at the airport. He said that if he had been in my place, he would have done the same. He sounded exhausted and sincerely ashamed. He thanked me for the original intention of funding the trip and said he wished I had been there. He told me that when he didn't see me arriving with Meg, he asked about me, and they told him I had a last-minute work emergency. The same story was told to his sister, who, by the way, was going with her boyfriend. Surprise, Mara wasn't bothered that he went, because he was the son of a wealthy real estate businessman and had a family inheritance. The most outrageous thing was that my wife didn't protest either, because her sister's boyfriend was welcome and her own husband, who was paying for the damn trip, was not. I wondered why this rich kid didn't step in when everything fell apart. But of course, why would he? According to my father-in-law, what I found out later, he told his girlfriend, Your parents are not my responsibility. I can help you if you ask me, but not everyone. One day before the trip, my sister-in-law announced in the family group that her boyfriend would join, and no one said anything. He had made all his reservations separately. I had no problem with him, and I didn't even know him. In fact, by then I was no longer angry. I was patiently waiting for my revenge to work, and it worked. It only cost me some accumulated miles on the card, and it was the best investment of all. When my sister-in-law and my father-in-law asked Meg why I canceled everything and blocked the card, she spilled the truth. She blamed Mara and admitted that she had asked me to give in to avoid conflicts. That's when my father-in-law called me to apologize. That same night, my sister-in-law wrote to me separately and told me I did the right thing. Mara had been unbearable during the whole trip, controlling and blaming everyone for the financial mess they were in. She told me, honestly, it's even funny, she deserved it. By the fourth day, my sister-in-law and her boyfriend announced that they would separate from the group because Mara was a headache. Finally, Meg was left alone with Mara and my father-in-law. She didn't bring all her cards because, of course, why would she have her husband's? The one she brought was exhausted in 2 days. The same thing happened to Mara and my father-in-law. They only carried cash for souvenirs and small purchases. They thought everything was already paid for, and in case of need, that the millionaire boyfriend would support them. He didn't even treat them to dinner once. My father-in-law exploded at Meg and Mara and ordered them to save the trip, or he would take the first flight back. Meg and Mara managed to borrow from friends and family to save the trip for my father-in-law's sake. The biggest chaos came when they arrived at the airport to board the return flight. They were denied entry because obviously the tickets were canceled. They were too naive to think that I would let that slide. Again, they had to borrow and buy tickets on the spot, much more expensive than if they had booked them in advance. My sister-in-law's boyfriend got furious and told her that she should distance herself from her toxic mother, and he said it in front of Mara. Somehow they managed to return. Meg has been furious with me ever since. She came into the house furiously and yelled at me that I should have warned them about the cancellation so they could prepare. She told me, "We didn't leave you stranded at the airport. We told you in advance and with a valid reason. You made us beg in a foreign country." I responded, "I'm not going to fall for your victim act. You brought this on yourselves. And what excuse do you have for your sister's boyfriend being welcome, but not me? I've been the son-in-law for 15 years. Why didn't you protest? Why didn't you take a stand when your mother excluded me? What happened to that family bonding and childhood memories?" She had no answer. She went silently to the bedroom. But there were my surprises, because on the bed were the divorce papers. I know my wife and where she heads when we have an argument, so I knew I would find the papers there as soon as I confronted her about everything. Now we are living together because I don't plan to leave my house. She has tried to apologize to me, but apologies are not enough. 15 years of disrespect from her mother, and she never did anything, and now this is the straw that broke the camel's back. It seemed fine to her to leave me out of this trip that I was paying for, so then the divorce seems fine to her. Edit. To answer some questions, I have decided to edit this post. For example, why was I willing to go on a trip with my mother-in-law when I can't stand her? Well, I wasn't planning to spend much time with her really. I was planning to stay away and have a vacation with my wife. Yes, I like my father-in-law and my sister-in-law, and that's why I was paying for this trip for them. Now, when I found out that I wasn't being invited, I thought they knew too, so I didn't mind that they were collateral damage. Anyway, I am willing to fix this after finding out the truth, by returning the money to them. As for my wife and my mother-in-law, no, only to those who considered me family. And as for those who say I should have canceled everything, even the outgoing tickets, what would be the fun in that? It cost me some miles and I got a bigger revenge. Update 1. So it's been 2 weeks since they returned from Italy. Megan and I are working on the divorce, or well, the lawyers really. She is still hurt and embarrassed, but I think deep down even she knows she screwed up. As I mentioned, at first we barely spoke except for her apologizing to me. We walked around the house, but we coexisted for the sake of being cordial, until now where emotional manipulation is in full swing. She would say things like, "I only wanted to keep the peace," or "You really made me look bad in front of my family, and it's not fair that you're divorcing me over this." I responded without mincing words, "That last phrase is exactly why I'm divorcing you. I'm not an ATM, I'm your husband, and if you don't back me up when your mother disrespects me, don't expect my wallet to back you up either." She didn't like hearing that, but well, the truth isn't always smooth. Here I pause my update. For those who say I should leave the house if I'm asking for a divorce, and I only stay because I'm looking for a way to fix things with my wife. Why should I leave and pay for a hotel or sleep on someone else's couch? This is also my house. We don't share a bed and we don't share a room. And I have offered my wife to leave and she has said no. The divorce is still on even though we coexist. During all this time, Mara has been totally silent. She hasn't said a word to me since then. It's as if punching the bad bitch in the snout worked. Apparently, she thinks I'm emotionally unstable, which is ironic coming from her, the queen of emotional instability. This Sunday, we received a dinner invitation from my sister-in-law. She said it was a gesture to thank me for having funded the trip. At least she got a one-way trip and 2 nights of hotel for free. I haven't accepted, and I have communicated to my sister-in-law that I am in the middle of a divorce with her sister. But the dinner has continued without me anyway, as a family dinner. I have also spoken with my father-in-law and with her about returning the money to them for being part of the collateral damage. They have told me that none of that is necessary, that they want to contribute to my lesson against my mother-in-law and my wife, soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law and ex-wife. But not having attended doesn't mean I can't find out about things. What kind of ope would I be if I didn't bring all the information in my updates? Let me answer you, not a very good one. This is what happened according to the accounts of my sister-in-law and my father-in-law. Mara came in with the fakest smile that money can buy. That is the Botox that money can buy, fake as a politician kissing babies. The dinner was, at the very least, awkward. Halfway through the meal, my father-in-law brought up the topic of the trip. He said that I had paid for the outgoing flights, so at least they owed me that. Myra exploded. Well, let's not pretend he did something noble. He used the money as a weapon to control the trip. My sister-in-law almost choked on her wine. She told her, well, you told him he wasn't family and should stay, but you didn't say the same things to my boyfriend. Sounds fair, doesn't it? If he was paying for your trip, you should have kept quiet, enjoyed it, and not opened your mouth the whole trip. You bit the hand that fed you, now get over it because you're starving. Her mother looked at her uncomfortably and responded, but he said it was a gift. Gifts don't have conditions. And my father-in-law responded, you're right, gifts don't have conditions, but they also don't come with demands like don't come because you're not part of the true family. It's just common sense, something I see you don't have. She turned red like a tomato with sunstroke. Then she tried to turn it around, saying that I was emotionally manipulative and abusive with money, that I did the same with her daughter, which is why I was now divorcing her. My sister-in-law told her the truth. Do you hear yourself? You excluded him from a vacation that he was paying for and expected him to stay home while you spent his money like it was monopoly money. She tried to change the subject by saying that wasn't the point, that I had promised them a trip and wasn't delivering. But my sister-in-law didn't let her say such stupidity. Mom, if you treated him as if he weren't part of the family. Honestly, you were quite horrible to him. Even my boyfriend doesn't feel comfortable with you and asked me to distance myself from you. That hit Mara immediately. The rest of the dinner was an awkward silence. Mara left shortly after, saying she had a headache. My father-in-law stayed. When he called me to tell me his part of the dinner version, he apologized again for the 3rd time, I think. He said he couldn't believe that Mara had gone so far. And he also told me, although this is crazy, that during the trip, Mara tried to show off to some locals by saying that she had managed to organize a luxury trip thanks to her budgeting skills. Ma'am, it was my card that paid, not your budgeting skill. The level of delusion is incredible. We laughed a lot. Mara is hard to break. Even though everyone has told her, she is not going to accept that she was wrong. She is in a kind of weird limbo, where her head thinks she is right, but her mouth doesn't know how to justify it. Instead, she sent me a very long message saying that I am not content with ruining the trip, but now I am using my wife to continue taking revenge. Of course, I am using my wife to take revenge, because she also didn't ask for something delusional and was ungrateful. Oh, and about the comments that tell me I shouldn't get divorced right away, but should work on my marriage. To those I say, friends, grow up. I'm a middle-aged man, I have been married for 15 years, I have 2 children, don't tell me what to do. What should I do with a wife who treats me like that, kiss her feet? Anyway, I am calm. I keep my peace, my dignity, and I don't regret for a second having done what I did. Was it a bit dirty for my sister-in-law and my father-in-law? Yes, but I have already fixed that with them, which is what matters. Thanks again for all the support. The comments, the messages, and the vengeful suggestions, especially the pettiest ones, have been pure gold. Update 2. Alright, hold on tight. It's been about 2 months since they returned from the trip, and Mara is still in free fall like a cheap soap opera villain who just realized she no longer has control. She's missing melting like a wet witch. I wasn't expecting her to apologize or find common sense, but I didn't think she would become crazier than she is. That woman doubled down harder than a blackjack addict playing with borrowed chips. First, she tried to go down the martyr path. She sent a long, dramatic message to the family group, which I am amusingly part of, even though I'm supposedly not family. There she was crying because she is buried in debt, now that she has to return the money to the relatives who lent it to her. And apparently my father-in-law doesn't want to take on that expense, so it will have to come out of my mother-in-law's savings. So she was crying at the top of her lungs. It's not that I heard her, but the messages were some understandable phrases mixed with sobs. I just let her vent and then put some laughing face emojis, but the ones that are laughing to tears to be consistent with her crying. My mother-in-law left the chat. Then she had a lawyer send me a cease and desist letter for harassment, citing that cyber harassment due to my smiling emojis was what was causing her harm. My lawyer said it's not even worth responding to that, but that I shouldn't send anything to my mother-in-law. I wasn't planning to anyway. Then she calls Meg when she knows I'm home, and I heard her tell her to put it on speaker so I can hear too. Basically, she complains about me to my soon-to-be ex-wife, and Meg just agrees. Until recently, I was nobody to my mother-in-law, but now she literally uses all her time to try to do something to me. I don't know what, but she tries that. The funny thing is she hasn't accomplished anything. Her attitude doesn't match what she has said in the past. To use Meg as an example, she was my wife, and I think she is doing less to attack me or get me to forgive her than her own mother. Someone reading this without reading too much into it would think my relationship was with my mother-in-law, God forbid, instead of my wife. The rest of the things, like the divorce, are still underway. We have to arrange custody of our children who, despite all this mess, are somewhat removed from the matter. The idea is shared custody, and I think we will get to that unless Meg decides to get petty and wants to fight it. But it's very hard for her to get it. We have cameras in our house in case she tries something. Update 3. I'm already divorced from my wife, despite the crying of people who insist on couples therapy. Do they have stock in that, or are they professionals in the niche? I don't understand the insistence. Basically, I don't see why I should fight for a marriage where I am in second, third, or maybe fourth place for my wife. Custody has been split 50-50, which is fine, and finally she paid my share of the house to keep it. I have already moved to another place. I think in terms of divorce, everything has turned out quite well. I know these things can get ugly from one moment to the next. But things are ugly for my ex-mother-in-law, because my ex-father-in-law has finally decided to divorce her. The guy called me to tell me that he didn't work his whole life to, upon reaching retirement, have to keep putting up with her. My ex-mother-in-law wants the debt with the relatives to be considered as part of the divorce, but my ex-father-in-law's lawyer told her not even as a joke. That is her debt, and he is not going to take care of it. Mara has also been seeking support from my ex-sister-in-law, but she got the same response. No one is going to pay for that trip except her, and I know that must be hurting her a lot. The only one who hasn't had a divorce is my ex-sister-in-law, because she is not married yet and is still in her relationship with the boyfriend she brought on the trip. That's all I have to update for now. Edit. I was asked for an update on my ex-father-in-law's divorce and if they are officially divorced. No, he didn't have to pay the debt. I don't know if my ex-mother-in-law has paid her debt or not. That is a debt among relatives, not a legal contract or anything like that. Although she wanted him to take responsibility too.